You know, when we look at the Sioux Falls School District's budget, and of course a process that starts in November of each year and goes forward until we get to April, this time of year, it's involved a significant number of community people, staff members, and administrators that put together a recommendation that comes to the school board. And we hold ourselves each year to seeing that we do what's best for each one of our students so that we can fully educate and prepare them to succeed in this changing world. And the word each in that budget, that word each drives our budget each year because we believe in multiple pathways, and we just challenge ourselves to continue to improve upon that. So when we look at this budget, and we know that we've got South Dakota's ongoing debate of whether or not schools are funded adequately or how they should be funded, we know that inside this district, we've got our forever commitment to be as fiscally responsible as possible and to very effectively manage our resources so that we can provide each student that pathway they need to success. And so the core of this budget is successful because, and these are some key points, because our community has entrusted us with a $7.5 million opt-out, and because each year we continue to find more efficiencies as we prepare the next year's budget, and I'll delineate those efficiencies in just a moment, because we have a 5-year rolling financial plan that allows us to cautiously monitor our expenditures today against what we believe may be projected in the future. And we have a very focused and intentful planned spend down of our fund balance from approximately 18% down to 8.5%. So if you take those pieces together, that lays the basis by which we're able to continue to thrive and survive in the midst of very tight and economic times and insufficient funding from a state level. So when we begin, one of the key questions that starts out in every budget is, well, what will staff be making? You know, maybe one of the first questions you ask me. And the FY13 per pupil funding from the state in the state aid formula will be increasing a mere 0.8%. However, the legislators approved some one-time funding that we'll be receiving at the end of April. We will take that one-time funding and combine it with that 0.8% so that our overall staff increase to the salary schedule process will be 2.3%. The 2.3%, obviously coming out of the legislative process, that combination between the one-time money and the state aid going up 0.8 equates to what the state aid should have gone up based upon the CPI, the index, okay? One of the questions that we always have to clarify with our staff on that 2.3%, that doesn't mean that each staff member goes home and takes what they make this year and multiplies it by 2.3. We have to apply that to the salary schedules first by funding the movement on those schedules, and then we go back and spread out the remaining amount on the schedule. So that does not mean each employee will have a 2.3% raise. So when I mentioned earlier, because we have that $7.5 million opt-out, because we continue to find efficiencies each year, because we have a 5-year rolling plan that has us very cautiously monitor today's expenses against tomorrow's projections, and we continue that plan spend down, the efficiencies that this budget includes that will be proposed to the full school board this afternoon include eliminating the school board's National School Board Association membership, and they are still able to travel to the NSBA conference where they receive their professional development without being a member of that organization. Scaling back part-time, a summer cruise, custodial cruise, and we did part of a scale back last year, and this is a continued piece of scale back this year. Reducing some of our auxiliary education assistants to 0.875 FTE. We had a handful or more that were scheduled to work at 1.0, and the program needs were not at that level, with the student day being less than that, so we were able to decrease the EA time. Eliminating 2 bus runs. Reducing my executive assistant in my office from 12-month to a 10-month plus 2-week. Decreasing some supplies and material line items for repair items. And then finally, decreasing approximately $800,000 from the utility expenses due to the energy education program. And we started with that program approximately 2 years ago with the whole intent that we knew and believed ahead of its time that it would be a lifesaver for us, and it's proven to be such as that as we put together this budget. That $800,000 savings since the base year of the energy ed program is approximately a 22% reduction in our utilities. So when we take those efficiencies and then we look at how do we modestly continue to focus on the needs that we have today, this budget replaces the funds that were eliminated by the State Department of Education for advanced placement scholarships for those who don't have the means to pay for the AP tests. This budget funds the second year of the Physical Education Wellness Instructional Coach to continue to support our health and wellness initiative for our students. This budget adds, finally, one more building computer specialist that's been requested for at least the last 5 years. And to put that in context for you, currently our team of behavior computer specialists, our technicians who uphold the technology in this district, there's one staff person to 1,330 computers, laptops, desktops, tabloids, whatever you want to call all the devices. And adding one BCS brings that from 1,330 down to 1,200. Obviously very conservative, but trying to move in the right direction. This budget also implements the recommendations from a 2009 clerical study. We had a third party come in and analyze the clerical duties in this district because we continue to hear from our even from parents, but from administrators and other staff members that they were in desperate need of more clerical assistance. The study proved that. We've been unable to fund that, and this year does fund that clerical study improvements as recommended. So for instance, each of our high schools of over 2,000 students will receive 2 additional clerical employees. And then it pays for 1/2 of a behavior classroom. Now I'm speaking to you about the general fund, and so 1/2 of behavioral classroom will be paid by these dollars, and the other half will be paid by special education dollars. And then it will provide for a small amount of money actually for our students who are in our flex program so that they might be able to be, as part of their school day, participate in a pilot program with STI where we could get them some hands-on learning toward career development. And then finally it adds 1 classroom for their truancy day program, which we've had in place over at Joe Foss, and it allows us to staff that to the level that we should be staffing it. Within the budget, in addition to those efficiencies that I outlined and these modest enhancements, we continue to implement the final phase of the administrative restructuring plan. It started in last year's budget. Between last year and this year, we've removed 9 administrative FTE, and in that juggling, part of that savings and trade-off was to this year provide an instructional coach for fine arts. And so we'll be able to fund the fine and performing arts without additional dollars because it was a part of that administrative restructuring plan, as well as our student support services person will be able to be full-time rather than part-time, half-time. Another piece in this budget, when you look at where do we start with our revenues against our expenses, we did do some adjustments in our existing 5-year plan so that we were able to utilize that one-time money fully toward our employees' salaries to get us to the 2.3. These included, we removed $610,000 from the general fund and moved it back to the capital outlay fund. You might remember that I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, the legislators allowed districts for the first time to move dollars from the capital outlay fund into the general fund. And we utilized that there were some specified uses of those dollars, and it had to do with our property insurance and liability. And so we looked at that this year and we knew that our capital outlay budget needs to have relief. The assessed valuations in our community have not kept pace with what would be projected. You know, we've experienced a decrease in assessed valuation rather than a planned increase in assessed valuation. So this budget moves that $610,000 from general fund back to the capital outlay fund. Again, we can think back and say, thank goodness for energy ed, because that $800,000 savings that came in on the general fund side is clearly something that helps us offset to be able to return that money back to the capital outlay side. We also, in this budget looking forward, each year when I speak about those efficiencies, the Finance Action Network last year, it was the group of the community financial gurus we called together, and they established that ongoing 5-year plan. And this year, we didn't call them together because the plan they left us projected accurately and very closely enough that we could apply what they had proposed as to a large degree. Anyway, historically we were taking out 0.5% of efficiencies. In FY13, they had wanted that to be 0 because they said, you're down, you know, you're at skin on bones. How can you find more efficiencies? But in tight times, they left us with needing to identify 0.25% to 0.25% of efficiencies. And in this FY13 budget, we don't take that to 0 yet. We leave it established that the next year we need to find 0.1% efficiencies in order to get the balance to budget, or the budget to balance. And then something else we do in this budget that again is being, I think, very fiscally responsible and very conscientious to our taxpayers' pocketbooks has to do with we propose holding our district's combined capital outlay and bond redemption levies flat at $2.35, the same as they were in this budget. They were proposed to increase, but we're holding them flat for another year. And then we will see that the fund balance in FY12 will increase by about $200,000, and that's due to that one-time money that's going to come in here in April that we're going to hold over to apply to these FY13 salaries so that our employees can have that increase rather than suffer a second year of a noticeable decrease. All of these pieces together, from the efficiencies to the modest enhancements to the finalizing and finishing out the phases of a couple plans that we started last year, bring us to a budget that comes forward to the public balanced and meeting the needs in a very conservative manner of the district.